So what are modes, huh? Probably what you're wondering, though less aggressively. And let's start with things that you definitely know and work from there. So this is something that you know. The major scale, all right? Now, that is also called the Ionian mode, all right? So now you know one of the modes. Now here is another scale that you definitely know. The natural minor scale, definitely a very popular scale, but it's also called the Aeolian mode. So now you know the Ionian mode and the Aeolian mode, but you're like,
well, what about all the other modes that have these fancy names and are so intimidating and I'm scared?
Now don't worry, that's why I made this video, and I want to show you that it's very simple. It's all centered around the major scale. Now a keen observer would note that I started on C, walked up the white keys, walked down the white keys, which gives you the C major scale on the piano. Now what if I did something crazy and started instead on D?
You're crazy, man.
And walked up and down the white keys. Ooh, gives you a different flavor. So if I start on C, now if I start on D, it's not just higher, it gives you a more minor kind of quality to it. Now what if I started on E? Again, another minor quality, but still slightly different. And so this is the idea, the intuition behind modes, is that you can have this collection of notes, this set of notes, but when you have different starting points for those notes, you're going to get these different flavors, different qualities, different textures, different feels, different emotions. The major scale has 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And therefore has 7 different modes because you can build or start a mode off of each of the 7 scale degrees. All right, so let's look at those one by one. So if we look at the first mode of the major scale, that's called the Ionian mode, and it sounds like this in C major. Okay, that's just your major scale. Okay, that is the first mode of the major scale, the Ionian mode. Now the second mode of the major scale is going to start on the second scale degree, and that sounds like this. It's called the Dorian mode. It's a minor mode. It has that minor chord in the root right there. Okay. Now the special thing about Dorian is that it has a natural 6. Okay, that interval right there. When I played, for example, D minor to G major, okay, that is not found in your typical minor scale, but it is found in your Dorian scale. Okay, so that's the second mode of the major scale. The third mode of the major scale is called Phrygian, and that sounds like this. So kind of similar to Dorian because it's a minor feel, but the special thing about Phrygian is that it has a half step here at the bottom, between the first 2 notes. Okay, it's also called a flat 2. Okay, so, or a minor second. Okay, so again, it sounds like this. Okay, so that's Phrygian, and that's the third mode of the major scale. The fourth mode of the major scale sounds like this. It kind of sounds like the Ionian mode or the major scale. Okay, but this is the fourth mode called Lydian, and the special sound of Lydian is this sharp 4 right here. Okay. That's why it sounds a lot like the Ionian mode, but it just has something slightly off, and that thing that's slightly off is it has a sharp 4 relative to the major scale. So that's Lydian, that's the fourth mode. The fifth mode is called Mixolydian. And just like Lydian, which is a major mode, the Mixolydian also sounds a lot like Ionian. I hope you could follow that, especially just being introduced to this stuff. But the Mixolydian, the fifth mode of the major scale, is also a major mode. But the special thing about Mixolydian is that it has a minor 7th interval here. Okay, now Ionian, or the major scale, has a major 7th interval. but Mixolydian has a minor 7th. Okay, and so that's the special thing about Mixolydian, the 5th mode in the major scale. The 6th mode of the major scale is called Aeolian. That's a beautiful minor scale to my ears, and definitely one of the most popular scales. And the interesting thing about the Aeolian is the minor 3rd, which is makes it really minor, and then the minor 6. Okay, so anytime that you can emphasize that minor 6 interval, you're really going to be bringing out the character of the Aeolian, which is the 6th mode of the major scale. The 7th mode of the major scale is the Locrian or Locrian. I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but it sounds like this. Okay, so Locrian is the 7th mode of the major scale, built off the 7th scale degree. And the special thing about Locrian is the flat 5. Okay, that makes this a diminished mode. And so there's 7 modes, 3 major, 3 minor, 1 diminished. The major modes are Ionian, which is the 1st mode of the major scale, Lydian, which is the 4th mode of the major scale, and Mixolydian, which is the 5th mode of the major scale. Now the 3 minor modes are Aeolian, which is the 6th mode of the major scale, Dorian, which is the 2nd mode of the major scale, and Phrygian, which is the 3rd mode of the major scale. And finally, the diminished mode is the Locrian mode, which is the 7th mode of the major scale, starting off the 7th scale degree. In this video, what we've been really talking about is relative modes.
You really think I give a...
So relative modes are when you have the same set of notes but different starting points. So for example, A Aeolian is a relative of E Phrygian. Why? Because they have the same set of notes. There's just a different ordering. There's a different starting point. Or B Locrian is a relative of F Lydian. Why? Because they have the same set of notes, but again, a different starting point. And so that's the idea of a relative. They have this relative mode. They have the same set of notes, just different starting points, different ordering. Think about like a relative. They have the same gene pool, more or less, okay? But when it comes to relative modes, you have the same starting ingredients, the same basic ingredients. And so in the next video, what I want to do is define the modes a little bit more precisely, and that's going to give us a way to really see what the differences are between the different modes. But what we need is to introduce the idea of a parallel mode as opposed to relative mode, which is primarily what we've been talking about in this video. But I will see you in that video.